October 10th, 2023, Quack Pond Games created and published a fast-paced third-person mech shooter. It features some smooth, low-poly graphics to create a battle landscape involving giant robots and hordes of big, hungry bugs. Over the course of its 20-mission campaign, you'll choose over 10 different mechs to pilot and face off against bandits and insects alike. If a story isn't your cup of tea, there's also a wave survival mode to continue on blasting with over 30 different weapons to choose. Most often I see this one compared to the likes of Earth Defense Force, Ace Combat, or older Armored Core. That would be Gearbits. The base game for this one took me just about 7 hours to complete, and that was including the full campaign and mucking about in the survival mode, and of course playing the special holiday mission that had been added post-release. I love a good seasonal sidestep. If you want the fun to continue, there's even an additional expansion of 10 more missions called Gearbits Raider Expedition. This one produces some post-game plotlines along with new maps and playable mechs. If you want to go even further, you can check out the free side-scrolling shoot-'em-up Gearbits Gear Angels. This one seems to be going a more Mecha Musume route, as you play as a half-mech, half-human character and maintain something of a retro Flash game cartoon flair. Throwback to addictinggames.com. And if you're just a fan of Quack Pond in general, their next game to hit the market is Carrier Wing Epsilon, a science fiction tinged flight combat game set to include branching story paths and space raiders. Me, on the other hand, hi, I'm Empty. I'm a bit of a newcomer into the world of giant robots. But I discovered that I really like them. So much so, in fact, that I decided it would be my personal mission to play every single mech game ever and record my thoughts here on this YouTube channel. If you'd like to keep up with my debriefings, go ahead and hit the subscription button, but if you just want to talk about your favorite mobile suit pilots, don't be afraid to take a seat down in the comments section. Thanks. Sometime in the far future, humanity begins to colonize space and creates a mining colony on planet SKG-7. The people there name the sandy world Orient, and work tirelessly to collect resources and seed the planet with settlements. That is until an insect infestation occurs. Seemingly out of nowhere, the Letopid menace appears. These giant bugs create chaos amongst the settlers, destroying the space elevator, cutting them off from the rest of humanity, and leaving the planet itself up for grabs between the friction of giant bugs, colonists, and also bandits. Also, the bugs create the Hive Spire, which is like a supermassive skyscraper of insect origin. You can see this thing from pretty much anywhere in the hemisphere because it's so tall. As far as into the actual game, you take control of a nameless pilot of Talon Squadron. I guess this is like the local militia at this point. The group is led by Commander Arno Contrail, and has a few other pilots like Lass and Ayla, and even a small science team with characters like Nora. The story is told through a variety of unskippable pre- and post-mission cutscenes, as well as communications messages during. At some point before communications were cut off from the rest of the universe, Orient sent out a great big SOS signal, so help should be on the way, but until then, we've only got ourselves to keep the planet and its settlers safe. From here, a variety of missions play out against bugs and pirates alike, defending cargo convoys, saving farms, clearing the mines, that sort of thing. At different points, you also get more complicated tasks like tagging Letopids instead of outright killing them. Also, as this progresses, the menu screen has an option to take 5 in your lounge of your base. This area should be checked often, as periodically it'll enable you to oversee various conversations held between the characters. This creates a sort of slice-of-life vignette into the break room, which I appreciate, rather than trying to shoehorn this sort of stuff straight into the main plot, where it might feel like it doesn't fit quite as well. We do breathe a sigh of relief, as reinforcements do arrive, through a giant spaceship called the Regolith. This group is called the Nighthawks and is led by a certain hairless First General Marshal Varna Rostrum. The relief is very quickly blown away as we realize the very one-dimensional rostrum is more of a slick 80s businessman bad guy who's really only there to ensure profits remain at an all-time high. There are no plans to remove the Letapid problems, as he determines it's good for planetary control and finances. Talon Squadron gets caught going behind his back and disobeying orders, which prompts a torturous mission where he set us up for failure with a self-destruct sequence inside our mech. Fortunately, we survive, but the Nighthawks, they're bad people. Essentially, what happened that got him so ruffled is that we ended up in a survival situation that required us to team up with a bandit group led by Old Silja against a massive insect swarm. We refused to fire upon them when their backs were turned, which was insubordination. The culmination of this story involves Talon Squad deserting the Nighthawks entirely to join up with these bandits in order to steal the Regolith spaceship to blast down the Hive Spire. Further than this, the Raider Expedition DLC takes place with an entirely new cast of characters and provides a sort of after-story epilogue to what happened to Planet Orient after the fall of said Spire. The main portion of gameplay is centered around the 20 story campaign missions. You select your Gearbit model and outfit it with an optional 3 weapons. Note, each GB does include a default weapon. Your choice matters for hand weapon along with right and left back weapons. Every GB itself has a unique set of stats: armor rating, thrust capacity, carry capacity, melee, general speed, coolant types, and so on. Combined with this, weapons also do too. Gotta keep an eye on our weight, since the machines aren't deployable if they can't physically carry what we're trying to hoist onto their backs. While in mission, the health and ammo pickups are little puck-shaped robots. You blast them and they walk toward you to be picked up. I think these guys are super cute, and it was an interesting design choice to have pickups be autonomous. The actual missions themselves can feature a variety of different tasks, though they all take place on a square map. An issue I found with this is that NPC pathing can sometimes get stuck in and or around the out-of-bounds edges of these maps. Anyways, a lot of the time, the missions will be about defending objectives, attacking objectives, fighting bosses, surviving hordes, and so on. Sometimes there will also be missions about recovering objects, in which case you'll need to grab the items and bring them back to a certain spot. I found the control setup for this to feel a little bit funky for some reason. Rather than having a default, object function, they seem to function within the weapon system. I kind of get the idea that it's supposed to be taking up a weapon slot because I need to physically hold it somewhere, but the way it functioned in practice felt clunky to me. As far as generalized controls, the aiming was definitely serviceable, but did have a bit of a slippery feel to it, especially when I was playing on controller instead of mouse and keyboard. And while I'm continuing to complain, I'd like to note that there isn't an option to change loadout upon mission failure. This is only an option upon completely leaving the campaign to main menu and starting the thing over again. There is effort to ease struggling players with a checkpoint system that I found to be hit or miss, and also an easy option is presented upon a certain number of failed mission attempts. Besides the campaign, there is a collection of maps available in a Horde survival mode. This even features a couple seasonal options for Christmas where you collect cargo in the form of presents. This is a little thing that won't make everybody happy, but I'm always super pleased with stuff like this. In survival, here you fend off waves of enemies while earning credits, and then in between the waves, you will spend the credits on Gearbit upkeep, weapon options, companions, and so on. The stat progression of this game is dependent on these credits, and they carry over from the survival mode into the main campaign. This is how you unlock new weapons and new robots. Further than this, there are some secret hidden options that have to be located across several missions. I enjoyed this style of level up. Since the credits carry over, it gave me a reason to actually hop into the survival mode instead of gunning straight for a campaign-only run. I also think there's a pretty decent balance here in that regard, where I didn't feel like I was being forced into grinds to enable upgraded weapons and character options, which is something I see a lot of games struggle to get a good balance on. The old school vibes of this one are immediately apparent. The UI, menus, and character art has a very indie and cartoony style appearance. It looks amateur, and I mean that not with negativity, but in an endearing way. It evokes the charm of a passion project. The rest of the graphics are very smooth-looking low poly. I know some people complain about this, but I guess I'm biased into liking this stylistically as I grew up in the Nintendo 64 generation, so this simple 3D visual set comes across as nostalgic to a degree for me. A description of the environments might come across as sounding sparse. It's a big desert. Pretty much all of them feature landscape of dusty browns and decaying trees. However, despite the biome remaining the same, I think a really good job was done creating set pieces within that to really make things feel fully different and special on a map-to-map basis. Things like different cliff systems, waterfalls, buildings, sprawling bases, landed spaceships, and of course, the most beautiful being the darkened mine levels, lit up with multicolored glowing gemstones. On the mech front, I think a lot of the designs here look pretty good. The low-poly aesthetic, I think, is a perfect fit for the blocky robot designs, a lot of which seem to be inspired by or maybe referential to other mecha media. You can look at certain qualities and probably point out bits and pieces here and there. This looks like a certain mobile suit shoulder piece, or hey, this guy looks like a classic super robot I've seen before. I'll leave most of these up to you, however one that I will point out specifically is that Eurosissa very clearly takes visual cues from the LEGO theme Rock Raiders. The yellow and black hazards, gray base with teal blue accents, and of course the brown canopy. I actually had the Granite Grinder walking drill set whenever I was a kid. I tried to recover it the last time I went home to visit my folks, but it looks like my nieces and nephews gave it a good playing with while I was away. On the audio end of things, my ears were pretty happy with this one. It's full of retro-sounding bloops and bleeps. Musically, something in between nostalgia synth, chiptunes, and modern electronica, but it never feels overwhelming in one aspect or another. I tend to say the phrase, not something I listen to outside of the game, but within its context it works. It fits with the visual set and works in a way that they both combine together and end up illuminating each other. As far as general game sound, that too was enjoyable for me, no complaints there. I especially liked the massive blowtorch sound of my jetpacks. Personally, I'm fine with the complete lack of voice acting. I know that VA is something worth pointing out because a lot of people care deeply about that one though. While I didn't experience anything massive like game crashes or loss of progression, this game does come with several smaller hiccups here and there. I tried to point out where things were a bit clunky or lacking already, but let's give a short recap, like the odd pickup system, slippery aiming, mandatory briefing viewing, confused AI, unclear checkpoints, a complete lack of voice acting, indie visuals. Let's take a moment to dig into things I haven't mentioned yet. I sometimes faced issues with the UI seeming to overlap elements together. It didn't turn out to be a super huge deal, but it's very clearly visually apparent when it happens. There were a couple minor spelling errors I noticed in the game. There's no function of command for NPC teammates, which I think would have been especially helpful when they decided the best course of action was getting stuck on the edges of the map or running circles around empty areas while I fought hordes of letipids by myself. Sometimes I even spawned into the wrong starting position in missions for some reason. An issue I think a lot of people are going to have is that the name of the game, including the words gear and bits, are going to make them assume this game has a complicated and in-depth mech building system, piece by piece. Unfortunately, that isn't quite true, as the GB choice is for one fully completed mecha, with only optional weapon loadouts. While personally I'm completely okay with this, I do know a few people who would almost blindly buy this one, setting themselves up for disappointment based solely on the title. In a similar way, you might look at this game and think the gameplay appears ripe for some fun multiplayer experiences, especially given the survival mode, but alas, this one is single player only. Final thoughts. Gearbits is a very solid experience that I find to be very recommendable at its modest price point. It had a fun campaign with a variety of mission, pleasant visual, and replayability in the form of secrets, further unlockables, and alternative game modes. The story, while maybe simple or short, crafted a comfortable and fitting narrative with further effort to develop characters on the side. This one even got fun post-release content updates like the holiday special and a paid DLC to further itself. There might be some unpolished bits or minor issues here and there, but nothing that creates detrimental problems, at least for me. This is a must-have for any mecha fan wanting an excursion into indie games.